right, everybody, welcome to the 354th edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I am Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man
Sage, returning from Medford after a very successful 30th annual Medford Multicultural Fair. We did this tile project and people were just so excited about it. Like a lot of the ideas that we had that were new just were so approved by the city of Medford. So it made me very happy. And we found some new MCs to host the fair that are really, really good and really, really like happy to be a part of the community. So it was a very good year. I worked a little too hard for it to be a good year, but learned a little bit more. Definitely can put stage manager on my LinkedIn skill set now because I've been doing it for 2 years and no major problems with that part of the entertainment. So very happy with it. Very happy it's done because bro, I'm gonna block a few of my coworkers from that. So they don't need to hear from me until like April. So it is what it is, but I'm very happy to be talking about this trade. It was kind of like I woke up after the fair, I was like, oh God, we're gonna have to do a podcast.
Well, while you were planning a fair, I got to play with dogs today. So,
Yeah, you texted me saying you play with a golden, and that's
a
my
golden
favorite.
and an Akita collie mix. Like
Nice.
basically looks like my cat Ertie, but in dog form. Super sweet, like loving all over Ari. The golden just wanted to play fetch, like just puppy dog eyes. Like, here's how much I love animals. We're at the dog park hanging out with our friend who has the dogs, and like the dogs like pee on the ball or around the ball because it's like that's our ball. And I'm just like, screw it, like whatever. I'll just sanitize my hands or wash my. But I just picked up the ball and
You
started.
picked up a peed ball? Holy shit.
But you should see the way the eyes look at you. Like, come on, like I want to play ball. Like I'm a softie, man. So I'm like, if this is gonna make you happy, it's gonna make me happy. And what do you know? It's just good.
Dustin Haas, germaphobe, except for animals.
Yes, and also having a kid really
Desensitized you to
lowers.
gross?
Yeah, you just have to accept it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
almost like having a cat too. Like when you think about it, like they're in the litter box. Like if you're cool with like if you think about it too much, it's like sausage. You don't want to know how the sausage is made. Just give it to me, right? Give me a
Mm-hmm.
hot dog. I don't care how it's made. Just sometimes ignorance is bliss when it comes to dogs peeing on balls and toddlers roaming around on hardwood floors. And that is the hard-hitting breakdown and analysis that you come for at the Holy Backboard Podcast. But for real, um,
Are you thinking about getting a doggy?
no. Maybe like 10 years from down the line. Like Ari's got to be able to take that dog for walks, and we're not even close to
So
that.
I was lucky. We rescued a golden retriever, which I love, and she had like a major thyroid issues, so she never wanted to walk. So it was like beyond easy to
So you had
take
a
care
cat, is what you're saying?
of a very cute golden cat,
Yeah,
red
you had
golden
a
cat.
big ass cat, is what you're
Yeah,
telling me.
yeah. So like I got really, really lucky with my first dog. Rest in peace, Brandy. But yeah, I got really lucky because dogs are actually her responsibility. But since she had like thyroid issues, it was just like, all right, we're just gonna hang out and watch Saints games and stuff. So it was very, very cool.
Yeah, I woke up and it was my day to sleep in, which was awesome. And check my phone, nothing, browse the forums, nothing. And then like my watch still thought I was sleeping, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a buzz on my watch for like I have Woj on my push notifications. But I looked down, there's like a couple red dots, and I was like, oh, there it is. And obviously the trade that went down, the Blazers and Celtics made a move. Celtics get Jrue Holiday, give up Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, a 2024 first round pick via the Golden State Warriors. Minimal protections, just protected 1 through 4. So if the pick is 5 through 30, it'll come Portland's way. And I think the star of the show, a 2029 unprotected first round pick from the Boston Celtics. So if you are counting at home in its entirety, the Trailblazers sent out franchise great Damian Lillard, Yusuf Nurkic, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. They brought back DeAndre Ayton, Tumani Kamara, Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams III. They got a 2029 unprotected first from the Milwaukee Bucks. They got a 2029 unprotected first from the Boston Celtics. They got unprotected swap rights in 2028 from the Milwaukee Bucks, a 2030 unprotected swap rights from the Milwaukee Bucks, and a 2024 lightly protected 1-4 first round pick via the Golden State Warriors. That is a lot. And also throughout the day, the Blazers announced they brought back Skylar Mays on a 2-way contract. So the roster is finally starting to take form. I don't believe there's an actual legitimate up-to-date depth chart at the moment, but you would have to imagine some variation of a starting unit includes Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton. Off the bench, all of a sudden you got a bench. You have Robert Williams, you have Chris Murray, you have Jabari Walker, you have Malcolm Brogdon, sixth man of the year, you have Matisse Thybulle. So they are deep and they are going to be entertaining. They are young. And I think for the first time in quite a long time, you have a defensive minded bunch that there's really, even though they're young and even though they don't have the chemistry yet, there really shouldn't be too many off nights where the defense looks as abysmal as it has in recent memory for the Trailblazers. It was still undecided. I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon is a long-term fit, but they did announce him. They, being the Trailblazers, announced both Robert and Malcolm on Instagram and Twitter, so that kind of made it official. They didn't
Is
really
that when you were the team, when you posted something on IG, was that like this is happening type of?
I mean, you can, yeah, and you can tell how they've been doing it. Like they said they acquired Jrue Holiday, but there was no welcome to Portland Jrue Holiday. There was no welcome video with Jrue Holiday alongside DeAndre and Tumani. Like you can kind of like, so when Joe Cronin starts talking about stuff, like you don't really have to necessarily take that with too much gumption. Like it's not, take it to the bank. You have to watch the actions of what the organization is doing. Who are they promoting in those FanFest ticket packs? Who are they putting out, in on their social content? Like, how are they announcing the players? And like, you can see who gets a welcome graphic. Like, even without the Woj tweet after the initial trade where Jrue Holiday came to Portland, you could easily look at that and say, oh, Jrue Holiday is not coming to Portland. Like, there's no way. Like, they are going to move him as soon as physically possible, which is what they did. And it took a while to announce Robert and Malcolm. So I assume Joe probably kicked the tires on some trades, but I would imagine that they keep Brogdon through the trade deadline or up until the trade deadline and wait until the season plays out, because you're probably going to get some contenders that would,
Love a
like
3-point shooter like him.
A season and a half of Brogdon, because he's got 2 years left on his deal, and they probably want to see how he performs after injury. Now, if you remember, the Celtics had initially sent out Brogdon a 3-team trade with the Clippers for Kristaps Porzingis, and that trade was approved, accepted, except Brogdon failed a physical with the Clippers. The deal was nixed, and that opened it up for Marcus Smart going to Memphis, which everyone was like, oh my God, you traded Marcus Smart. And so now the Boston Celtics really get a player of similar game style, grittiness, heart and soul defense, lock you up, put you
culture
kind of
type dude
too. And now the East, I think it's really funny what Portland did. If I'm being like honest,
they reloaded the Eastern Conference, bro.
They reloaded the Eastern Conference, and if you've ever watched The Office and you've seen them when they have the murder mystery episode at the end where it's like the 3 or 4 people like each pointing finger guns at each other, like the Blazers created that situation for the Eastern Conference. You trade Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, making them the favorite. Miami, who was the Eastern Conference champion, misses out on him.
I think they're the biggest losers of all of this.
Absolutely. And then you go to Boston, who was number 2 in the East, and you say, oh, here's the Damian Lillard kryptonite right here in Jrue Holiday. So you just sold that to the Bucks. And so now you've got an absolute showdown. Hopefully we'll get to see that with the Bucks and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, because that would be incredible basketball. I think both teams are just absolutely stacked. And along with Denver, those are the three favorites, in my opinion. But then you've got the Miami Heat who are just left out in the cold. You know, they make the finals. They let Max Strus go. They let Gabe Vincent go. I don't really know. I know this is a Blazer podcast, but I do want to touch on the Heat. Like I would be livid if I was a Miami Heat fan.
Mm-hmm.
They completely let their hubris and their arrogance get in the way of doing business this offseason. Like, who gives a who cares about Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic if you're the Miami Heat? They're not going to help you contribute this year. Like, if you really believe you're one step away from the finals, like, I would be pissed off if you weren't willing to part with 2028 and 2030 first round picks. Who cares? If you win the finals, it doesn't matter. Just like what the Bucks did. They gave up all that capital for Jrue Holiday. They won the title. They won that trade. Like, you win the title, you win the trade. That's just how it works. Doesn't mean New Orleans didn't do a good job with that, but Milwaukee achieved the ultimate goal, and now they decided to go at it again. And you're if you're Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, you're probably like, what the hell just happened? I mean, Jimmy's maybe got one more, like, I don't even know if he's got what he's got left in the tank. That was an incredible run that he had. And now Gabe Vincent was starting over Kyle Lowry. Now Kyle Lowry's the starting point guard. And you got Tyler Hero, who's pissed off because he heard his name in rumors all summer long. And Udonis Haslem, who, talk about heart and soul, he retired after over 20 years of service to the Miami Heat. And I think the Miami Heat are in for an absolute rude awakening this season.
I mean, if Dame went to Miami, I was still gonna bet the under on potential wins because Jimmy Butler is out a lot. If you like look at how often he plays, he really wasn't that big of a factor because he had like a nagging toe injury that kept him out for 3 weeks. Like Hero and Bam really got them to the playoffs. So I mean, Hero has to be pissed because legitimately he was winning them games in that regular season, and then
they
he
made
just
it to
had
the finals in his rookie year, and he had a big role in that.
Yeah, he was just like he had a humongous responsibility, especially with Jimmy out. So it sucks. My first thought when I saw it at like 8 or whenever was active, I was like, Boston really did it there, because when Dame was there, I was thinking that they were the favorites for the chip, but I really love Boston and their coaching staff. They got Charles Lee as a lead assistant. Their staff is the most complete, and Adrian Griffin is kind of like a unknown
They do
commodity.
have Terry Stotts, though.
What?
And Stotts has won a chip.
I think Charles Lee
with Dallas, though. Stotts has won a chip with Dallas, and he has familiarity with Dame. I'm just
but
and Joe Mazzulla made
as
some
a whole
questionable decisions.
I think the staff of Boston is just better because Sam Cassell and Charles Lee as assistant coaches, pretty nasty.
The biggest man crush on Charles.
Oh my god! Our Twitter was Charles Lee for GM, and I am not in charge of the Twitter at all. But yes, I do have a humongous man crush on Charles Lee. So, like, I thought that with that coaching staff, they were the favorites pre-Dame trade. Now it's like Jrue Holiday is kind of made to defend Damian Lillard.
Derek White's no slouch defensively either.
Oh, they have a great team.
And now the question for both,
Kristaps' health is now a humongous issue.
Yeah, the question for both is front court depth for Boston. Obviously, you have Horford and Porzingis. They've got nothing behind those two players. And then for Milwaukee, I think it's just overall depth. Like Grayson Allen, love him or hate him, I think most would go towards the latter, especially from his Duke days. Played a massive role on that team. Jrue Holiday did a lot for that team defensively. Brooke Lopez is a little bit older. Robin Lopez has lost a step 5 years ago. Middleton is in and out of the lineup recently. So
he's been so like availability is really important at this point in time. And having Chris Middleton just not play extended minutes until the playoffs really just shows the lack of depth. Yeah, I both of these teams are just unbelievably good, but there's no team without warts. But man, I'm very excited for the Eastern Conference this year.
Before we dive into this, is there a team as a contender that if you're a fan of that team, you're like, why did we not? Like, you see the asking price, 2 firsts and 2 role players. If you're a team, who missed out on him the most besides Miami? I think Miami missed out both on Dame and Jrue. Is there another team out there that just, because there's one that popped into my mind, but I want you to go first.
Philly and BK, the
You
Brooklyn
think
Nets.
Brooklyn's a contender?
I think they're like the 6th lead. So I think they're a playoff contender. I don't think they're a contender, but I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is good enough to be a starting point guard on a playoff team. And then they had the young players and assets for Dame, especially with all those picks. And then they absolutely had all the assets and picks for Jrue Holiday, and they kind of swing and missed. So
For
now
sure,
it's Spencer
Philly. I'll,
Dinwiddie.
I'll give you Philly. I mean, Joel Embiid sent out the most passive aggressive tweet after Jrue got traded to Boston. He's like, "This offseason's been fun." LMAO. So he's clearly, I think, the next media darling in terms of when is he going to request out, because you've got Harden, who knows what's happening there. Tyrese Maxey is good, but like, I don't think he's a Dame Giannis combo. If you're like, Embiid doesn't have his
Who's
Robin.
gonna give if James is not gonna do whatever if he's just gonna sit out? Who's gonna get Joel the ball? Tyrese Maxey's no point guard. He's a
Yeah,
combo guy.
they went from having all of, I mean, they are the classic, be careful story. Like, they had all the assets in the world,
They had the assets by the balls and then just let it go,
and they
bro.
just made the wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision. Here's my team, and I know it may have been doing a player a little bit dirty, but I think we've seen that across the league. The Golden State Warriors. If I'm a Warrior fan, why are you not giving up Kuminga, Chris Paul, and a first round pick for Jrue Holiday? Jrue and Steph in the backcourt with Draymond and Clay. I mean, Looney can play like that. If you were really going all in with the Warriors, I that to me, surprising they didn't make, and maybe they did make a good offer, and Portland went the other way with it, but
Well, you
I'm
got to think about
surprised.
helping a Western Conference team too. That has to be a
Portland doesn't
benefit.
care about, the Portland's not trying to win. So in general, yes, I would say you're correct, but right now I think Portland is completely in asset acquisition mode.
So, what did you think about us getting this stuff back? For me, like one of the biggest things is I don't think Robert Williams or DeAndre Ayton can play a lick of power forward. And then it makes me think like DeAndre Ayton's probably going to get 32, 34 minutes a game. So Robert Williams is going to be his direct backup with no real like ceiling for minutes because of how much DeAndre Ayton demands of minutes. And then you think about, some teams go small. Are you really going to go small with Robert Williams at the 5? It just, for me, the fit doesn't really do it for me in terms of like Robert Williams, because I personally thought Rob Will was going to be the one traded, and then I saw stuff about Broggy Pants, but it ended up both of them would be on the team. I just don't know if there's minutes available for Robert Williams with his current skill set, and I just don't see the marriage between him and DeAndre Ayton being a good one because of how much minutes Ayton demands, and you can't put them both on the team in terms of spacing. I just don't think that works in 2023 basketball.
I think getting Robert Williams is like the ultimate like luxury, right? You're getting him back. I don't think you start him. Obviously, you don't play
No,
Williams
you
and
Aiton's
Ayton at
starting.
the same time. The great thing is that Portland went from having maybe the worst center rotation in the league to now maybe one of the better
Yeah,
ones.
we
And
definitely
then
have the luxury of Rob
he
Williams running that
becomes
ship.
he becomes the backup. But I mean, you're now protected from Aiton getting into foul trouble, Aiton maybe having a hard time staying on the court with a certain team, because obviously Robert Williams is a much better defender. And you're also not having to play Robert Williams extended minutes. Like, he has had injury
Mhm.
issues in the past. You don't want to load him up with a ton of run. I think getting him 20 minutes a night, letting him go all out, um, I think that's perfect. And you're also not trying to give DeAndre too much right off the bat too. Like, this is an 82 game season. Like, you get road trips. I think it's just all about depth. Like, the fan base, if they can agree on one thing, it's that Portland had no size and length for the past 3 or 4 years, and now
Mhm.
you finally get Robert and DeAndre. I think another good aspect of this um is if Robert starts to play really well, and we know
He's
Aiton's
a
part of
trade
the
asset for
yeah,
sure.
we know Aiton's part of the big three. He is the trade asset. You can move him and you can feel good about it that you're going to get something from him. So I think you can take him, you can work with him and develop him back to where he was, maybe a year ago before the injury bug hit. And now all of a sudden that's a player that's you could sell high on.
It's
Um,
kind of like the John Collins to Utah thing. He was traded for so little, and now Utah is going to be able to swing a trade for him and get a real asset back that can fit in their time in their time frame. Like, you know, Taylor Hendricks is the future of the power forward position on that. It's not John Collins, but if you can increase his value to be a trade asset for the future for a team that's looking for a power forward or a center, I think it's good. But man, having 48 minutes of just absolutely good center basketball is going to be a humongous change from hoping Drew Eubanks can play 25 minutes as a starter.
yeah, I mean that's going to be a massive upgrade for just even viewing pleasure, right? Like that's just going to be better basketball to watch. I think what I envision Robert Williams is probably there was a time when Montrezl Harrell got traded from Houston to the Clippers for Chris Paul
Mm-hmm.
in that package with Lou
Yeah.
Williams. The year before Montrez was suspected to get the max, like he was DPOY potential. He was just everywhere. He was an absolute menace. Like if you can get that out of Robert Williams in 20 minutes a night, like that's just going to be so fun. Like there's a Boston personality that I watch their YouTube videos and I check their Twitter from time to time. Very upset that Robert Williams is a part of this trade. Like I think he just gives a lot. And the Blazers are going to thrive in transition with the
Oh yeah.
athletes that they have. So having defense lead to offense will be so key for them. I was really hoping that they were going to move Brogdon immediately just because I think the backcourt's already crowded. But if Portland does feel like the offers weren't there, I'm totally on board with Joe Cronin waiting, letting Brogdon back up Henderson. Like he is a veteran. I think we've been talking about having Scoot have a veteran. Like if Scoot's having a rough
Froggy
night,
Pants could be a really good bet for him.
yeah, you can let Scoot, okay, you got to go to the bench, like watch the game from the sidelines, and your team's just, you're not, no offense, you're not having Skylar Mays play 30 minutes if Scoot's having a rough night, right? You can just, okay, Malcolm Brogdon is going to play real big boy minutes, and you're not going to lose by 50 points like you did against the Warriors at the final game of the season. Um,
It's like I feel like Scoot's like the 100th percentile athlete, right?
yeah,
And then Malcolm Brogdon
the 2020s Andre Miller.
clears the athletic like clears that athletic bar by like the smallest bit. But the fact that he's so smart makes up for the fact that he's so unathletic as a point guard right now. I actually don't think he's a point. I think he's fully into combo guard, corner sitter type of play style now. But I mean, having a vet like Broggy Pants is a good thing. And there definitely will be games where he gets like 5 for 6 from three and changes the game from a win to from a loss to a win. He's gonna definitely help us a lot. And then he's the one dude who can rent a car that's a guard right now because our young boys definitely can use him as a mentor. And I think this actually, I know people are going to say this helps Scoot, but I also think this helps Anthony Simons a whole bunch. Having a vet like Malcolm Brogdon, where he was never the star of the show, but he was a very good person that filled in what the his whatever roster that he was on needed. So I think he's going to be really good for Ant because they both have amazing sharpshooting potential. So I think that Broggy Pants can help him out with a lot of the stuff that he's just missing. Anthony can do all of the stuff. He has all the athletic ability in the world, but now he's gonna have a dude that's gonna help him, get his shot prep, get everything ready. So it not only helps Scoot Henderson, but it helps Anthony Simons as well.
this is Chauncey Billups like make or break year,
It
right?
has to be.
Like there's no expectations. We only need to see development. Like you have this is so I was thinking about this. Aside from Anthony Simons, every player is a Chauncey guy, Chauncey and Joe. There is no excuse now. Like you have the guys. You've clearly been working with Joe. Joe knows the type of system that you like. There's just no excuse now, right? Like it's time. Like you got your 2 years. You can say tanking year one, Dame gets hurt,
Injuries year two, yeah.
and all this. Okay, like we've discussed this. They were bad in his first year, even with that regular playoff quote unquote team from the year prior to the loss to Denver. But okay, we're in year three. You've got your guys. To me, this is a put up or shut up year for Chauncey Billups. I think because he's going into year three of year four. He has a team option for a year five. So I need to see like how he handles not only Scoot, how he handles Shaden Sharp, and how he handles DeAndre Ayton. Like those are the three that I need to see continue to shine. Because that's our big three moving forward. Scoot, Shaden, and DeAndre. Like how does this team look? How are they playing together? It's cliche, but what are the vibes like? Does everyone seem like they're happy? Does everyone seem like they're moving forward and learning, skills? Are they utilized correctly? Like he has the tools now. Like great coaches find a way to get to players, and DeAndre's got talent. A great coach is going to get through to him and find the right tactics. Like the great coaches, and I'm not saying Chauncey's a great coach, but if we're talking about put up or shut up, you kind of have to go to another level and say my one size fits all, motivational approach has to go out the window. You have to tailor it to each individual player. Maybe DeAndre doesn't want to be yelled at, or maybe he needs to be yelled at. Like that's up for Chauncey to
He
figure
has
out,
to learn
and he
what
has to coach. He has to coach. The players are there. They're excited. There's no expectations on this team, Sage. If you make the playoffs, fun, awesome. That's a success. If you get a top 5 pick, awesome. That's what we need. But like, how are the players looking? Because we've seen Scoot for 2 years in the G League. There's a baseline there. We saw Shaden Sharp over the final 10 games get starters minutes. There is a baseline there. And we have seen the good and the bad from DeAndre when he's locked in. There is a baseline there. So we need to see how Chauncey Billups can coach. And I do think there is a month or two grace period because damn near everyone's new on this roster, but there still should be competitive. Like there needs to be competitive basketball. They better not be getting blown out. Like if they win or lose, that doesn't really matter to me. This is a competitive roster.
So one of the things that you I feel like Chauncey Billups caters to those big three, whoever it may be. But those guys on the fringe, I feel like he doesn't really respect. Like you saw what he did, like the relationship between him and Yusuf has been bad. So of course I want to see him cater to those superstars, but I don't want to see him throw away something that may be good. Like what if he treats Robert Williams like shit? So he has to treat those other three pristinely, but he also can't treat them like absolute garbage like he did with Yusuf. He has to show that the team has camaraderie. So he can't just focus on those three. He has to focus on the team in general because everybody right now on this team has potential to be something. Obviously, those three have the most direct part or the direct route to superstardom, but anything really could happen with development. So I don't want to see somebody cast aside like we saw Yusuf. And I was thinking about it. You know who Brogdon absolutely helps the most? Matisse Thybulle. Because Matisse's lack of shooting is going to be lessened because you have such a great catch and shoot threat. So the offense won't look as bad. And then we can use Matisse defensively because Malcolm Brogdon's going to be on the floor. There's going to be more shooters to spread the floor around for those guys that are specialist defenders like Matisse. So I think that Brogdon and his abilities and his skill set really help a lot of people. But yeah, this is definitely time for Chauncey to put up or shut up. I mean, there's plenty of really good coaches that can inspire these players. So this is his last chance. And we've seen what he does with a roster that is kind of condensed, but either by straight up tanking or injury. He's not one of those guys like Nate McMillan that can inspire a team that is losing major components. So let's see what he can do with a team with full of young guys that have all the potential in the world. Can he craft them? Can he make that team cohesive? I would, if I was a betting man, I would say no, because we haven't seen him do it with the team, the roster that he has. But it's a chance. Is he a Nate McMillan, Monty Williams type of guy that can get the best out of him, or is he like a guy that needs the best? He gets the best out of the best players. So it really is a put up or shut up time for Chauncey. And if he fails, I don't think he gets another chance because of how bad he has been in the last few years. It's
I was
plain
gonna
to
say
see.
if he fails, there's gonna be people knocking down the door to coach this roster. Like
Oh yeah,
I think it's stacked long term with the assets that the front office has accumulated. I think it now went from like
the
I don't
worst.
know with the Damian, like it was like a wishy-washy job. Like maybe a first-time coach will take it just to get their foot in the door. But now it's like, okay, this new era has clearly arrived. It's going to be here for quite some time. I think it becomes an attractive job.
I remember when you and I were talking, and it might have even been on a podcast where like the Blazer job pre-Scoot was like, it's almost as bad as Washington. Now it's one of the more attractive jobs because you have a Scoot Henderson, you have Shaden Sharp, you have all of these players that fit into roles very easily and seamlessly. Now I bet we could get the Charles Lee assistant or the Will Weaver head coach. Like we can get those prime guys if Chauncey fails, and I think Chauncey fails.
I mean, I think it's the type of job that like maybe you even could get like Juwan Howard away from Michigan if he's like, I'm done with dealing with collegiate BS, like one of those high profile. Um, I think I think it's a high profile job.
I would love to see what for those that don't watch college basketball, Michigan, along with like UConn, is one of those teams that builds a scheme around the players, and it's really beautiful basketball. So, I mean, Michigan already plays a pro style offense. Like Jet Howard and Kobe Buffkin were taking professional shots, running off of like down screens, and like they were really coached. They didn't play to up to their potential, but it was always beautiful basketball. So I think the Blazers could really get a lot of guys that they couldn't have gotten, 5 months ago. Because it's so much, there's so much more like good vibes and potential, and a lot of people would be really excited to coach Scoot Henderson.
Assuming this is the roster going into training camp and the preseason, is this a playoff team? Even a play-in, so top 10 seed in the West. I know we'll do our breakdowns closer to the start of the preseason, and I know we haven't done complete like who's actually on what. Like there's a lot of moves that were made this summer, but like, is this a top 10 seed in the Western Conference for you?
It is not a playoff team, but I think that it absolutely could be a play-in team.
I
It
mean,
all depends on the
if you want
development
to
of
work backwards, teams that you definitively feel will be worse than Portland, I think San Antonio is the one that I can think of, just because they have no veterans. They just have complete youth. Houston was god awful last year,
yeah.
but they did bring in some veterans, but it's still Houston, right? Um, and the West is deep.
Mm-hmm.
The West is deep. I think nobody would have really thought that Dallas would have had just the dive year that they had. They go from the Western Conference Finals to the lottery. They still haven't really solved many of their problems. So yes, I know you have the great Luka Doncic, but they also have Kyrie Irving. They're talking about starting Derek Lively and Omax in the preseason. And if you're starting two rookies, like what does that say about the depth that you have? So if the it's predicated on two ifs. If the Blazers keep this roster and they actually go for it and they don't start quote unquote resting players, I think it's a top 10 team in the West. I think they're better than Utah.
I mean, there's a lot of contingencies, but yeah, I could absolutely see them being a top team.
Like
10.
10, 11, like 9,
Yeah,
10,
yeah.
11. I think they're going to be in that
What do
realm.
you
Now,
think the Vegas will put as a over under for
ooh, that's a
wins?
really good number. 32 and a half.
I'd probably go the over.
Depends. I think that's right. Like where it's like, ooh, I don't know.
Just
But
so everybody knows, DraftKings Sportsbook is really good on those lines. So, bet if you're going to indulge in betting, do it
bet with your head,
responsibly.
not with your heart.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. But responsible betting, people.
But I think Utah is a cautionary tale from last year. Danny Ainge, I think, did a phenomenal job what he got for Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. The problem was Lowry Markkanen turned out to be really good. The
Mhm.
team turned out to be really good to start the year, and they were out kicking their coverage, so to speak. They were overperforming. And when you overperform, it gets fan interest up. Those
Yep.
arenas start getting packed and you're selling tickets. And it may not be easy to pull the plug as early as Ainge probably wanted to. So they made a trade at the deadline, but they still were competitive. And I'm sure Danny Ainge wishes he was in the top 3 of that draft rather than settling for Taylor Hendricks at 9. Now, we both like Taylor Hendricks, but
Is
I mean,
Kaysen the other first round pick?
no, they got Keontae George.
Okay.
Cason Wallace went to Oklahoma City.
Because I'm trying to think who's going to handle the ball since it who's their point guard?
Colin Sexton.
I don't think I don't think he is
But
a point guard.
Utah, and why I say this is a cautionary tale, is a team that is too far in their rebuild. They needed to be a step or two back so you can accumulate those high draft picks. Yeah, they have a war chest of assets, so that it is a better chance they could move up if they needed to. But they go out and they added John Collins. Like, I don't think John Collins is a difference maker. So what I'm saying is, for Portland, you've got your big 3. You could maybe throw Anthony as a mini 4. I think the
Hopefully
organization
Jeremy Grant's in there.
the organization is part of that. But you do have Jeremy Grant. You do have Malcolm Brogdon. You do have Matisse Thybulle. You have some veterans who I don't think you need long term. I mean, you look at both Malcolm and Jeremy age wise. I don't think they match up with the timeline
Definitely not.
of the core. If the Blazers were ready to win now, I think Malcolm Brogdon is probably the best backup point guard that you could imagine. Um, Jeremy just signed a massive 5-year deal. And I think he's going to be a valuable commodity. Again, I think this is going to come down to the deadline. Is there going to be a contender that's willing to throw? If he's playing as he did at the early part of the season, we were talking like Jeremy Grant's worth 2 first-round
Mm-hmm.
picks. And so the Blazers need to see, okay, like, we don't want to. It's such a tricky situation when you rebuild. And that's why a lot of teams keep younger players around. Oklahoma City's, I think, managed to do it really well. Um, But you look at teams like the Suns in 2014 when they had like Goran Dragic and the Morris twins
And Eric Bledsoe.
and Eric Bledsoe, and they were supposed to be dog shit, and they ended up almost making the playoffs. You could argue that as great as those memories were when the Blazers made the playoffs in 2016 when Vegas had the
Mm-hmm.
over under at 23 and a half, that led to a chain of reactions where Neil O'Shea felt like he had to match on all of those salaries, and that set Portland back. So if you're the Blazers, you really have to evaluate with your head, not with your heart, not with the ticket sales, not with the excitement around the team. So if you're playing well, you have to really be honest and say, is this fool's gold, which Utah completely was,
Mm-hmm.
or do we really think we could go and win a playoff series? Like, the Blazers need to think like that. Like, if you're in the playoffs, can you win? Not just can you make it competitive, because that's what really makes it worth it is, winning and then being competitive in the series following, and then knowing that you have the assets lined up to build upon that. Because as great,
Sustainably.
yeah, sustainably, like as great as I like this roster long term, there's still glaring holes at the forwards. You have really no small forward right now. I think Shaden needs to be eventually moved to the 2, and Jeremy is a good power forward, but he's also 29 going on 30, and everyone in the core is between 19 and 25. So
And I
they're
also worry about rebounding too.
yeah, you need I think you just need an upgrade at the four. And the one thing that Joe Cronin was not able to accomplish with these trades was get back an elite blue chip prospect. That was the one thing that just wasn't on the table, wasn't able to pull off, was that young prospect coming back. Even like Utah got OG or not OG, they got Ochai Abaji in the Donovan Mitchell trade. They got Walker Kessler in the Rudy Gobert trade. Like those players, rookie scale contracts, you can develop them. They're more valuable, I think, than future first round picks because they're on that rookie scale and you can see them right. They're playing
I
tomorrow.
mean, Walker Kessler was on that FIBA. Like
Walker Kessler could be
people
DPOI next year, man. Like that's
people that are smart look past Walker Kessler's glaring weaknesses and saw that he made a humongous impact. I think his defensive numbers were Rudy Gobert like, and you're
he
paying him
basically
like
replaced
$2
Rudy
million.
Gobert, and you got everything else on top of what they got in terms of draft capital. So it's going to be a fun season. It will be interesting to see how the Blazers come out, how they perform. If they perform above expectations, do they sell high? And I think that's what will be the mark. So Joe Cronin, I think you could say he passed that first test, like dealing with all of the drama that came with trading the franchise great, right? Like I think he did a solid job with that. But can he now navigate the waters where if you're overperforming, can you kind of
Can you pull that riptide?
yeah, can you say, okay, Jeremy Grant can fetch me two first? You need to do it because we're good, but we're not championship level contending. Like you want to get to the title, you want to get to the top. Like, yeah, do you have the intelligence to say, I need to cash in on this Malcolm Brogdon chip or Matisse Thybulle, like right? Like,
Yeah. Can I be real? I think that trading Damian Lillard, I know Miami was offering some bullshit, but getting a lot of assets for Damian is the easy part. Building a contender that's sustainable is going to be the hard part. You got what you got these assets, build something with it. Like I know he's the guy that traded Damian Lillard, but he got assets. And now he has to do something with said assets. So I think now is the time where Cronin really earns that the job of GM, because you were gonna get a good offer for Damian Lillard. He's a top 75 player, but now it's time to really prove that he's him and he can make these tough decisions. So if Malcolm Brogdon is shooting 40% from three, and like the Sixers or a playoff contender could use some
Clippers,
shooting,
man.
pull that ripcord, get a first round pick. Like this is really time for Cronin to earn everything that he's got. Like this
This season's defining metric should be fun. Did you have fun watching the game? I don't care if you win or lose or this year. No, this is just fun.
no, I mean, how many games has Scoot and Shaden played in a competitive setting? A half. So it's really like it's time to see what those two plus DeAndre Ayton can do. So I mean, there really isn't that much pressure on them. Just perform, and if they do that, you know, Chauncey might be safe. But it really is the fun factor, the vibe factor, and I just want to see how he treats all 13 players on that active roster.
And if you make the playoffs and it's led by Scoot, Shaden, and DA, I think you take it. As long as you don't like overcompensate, say we have to make all these win now trades, as long as you let the rebuild happen organically. I think that's the big thing for me because playoff experience is valuable. And if you're winning because of your young players rather than, well, let's say Jeremy Grant's, averaging 35 a night, like that's one sustainable and one's not. So I think as long as the Blazers are aware of that. But have you seen the video of DeAndre and Tumani?
Yeah, dude,
Da, my man was hyped to get out of Phoenix. I mean, Jesus.
It was a toxic work environment for him. It legitimately was. Like
Somebody
Monty
I
Williams did his
follow
best to
on
make that shit as awful as possible, and it really killed all of his. So I'm really happy to see how happy
somebody I
he is.
follow who covers the Phoenix Suns was basically just like the relationship grew toxic when in 2021, after DA plays a massive role in getting them to the finals, even if you didn't believe that he was worth the max, like not giving him the max, like just he's like, oh, I don't feel wanted. He didn't feel wanted or valued. He's like, I had to go out. Indiana clearly valued me, so they signed me to a max, and then now you have to match it. So I mean, put yourself in a similar situation in a work environment, and
Do you
it
think there's
makes
a chance he goes that Chauncey has not had the best track record with bigs? I hope that he can really take the time to learn how DA actually needs to be taught and talked to, because he surely did not show that shit with Yusuf. I mean, it's got to be, there has to be so much pressure on Chauncey Billups right now because of how this team was built, how efficient it looks, how like repeatable successes, and the fact that we have all of these assets. Chauncey has to fucking not leave
deliver.
after every game 30 minutes after the end of the game. He has to actually help develop these players.
And I think there will be pressure from the front office. Like, okay, we were essentially willing to draft Scoot Henderson if it meant trading Damian Lillard. Like, there's no playing Scoot Henderson 8 minutes a night like they pulled with Shaden a few games last year when it was clear they weren't a playoff team and everybody else was playing like garbage. And it was a game against New Orleans. I distinctly remember it. Like I decided to nap through that game because I was like, you're not playing Shaden. Like I'm taking my nap. Like I was a new father and I was like, this isn't worth my time. There's no doing that. Like
Mm.
not with all of the marketing materials they're putting out there. Like they are selling Shaden and Scoot and Anthony and DeAndre. You're playing those players. Like so it's on him to figure it out. I think that's the biggest question mark going
With
forward.
Malcolm Brogdon, is there going to be a is there going to be a section of Anthony's playing time where he's the point guard now that we have Scoot and Brogdon playing all 48 minutes of point guard? Are we going to see the experiment of Anthony Simons playing the one, or is he strictly a two guard?
Hmm.
I'm sure he plays spot minutes at the one, but
Spot minutes, but I think I mean God, we're going into like what year 5 with Anthony, maybe year 6, year 5 or year 6. I think it's time to figure out who he is. And I, what does he do best? He scores the basketball, but he also played really well when Damian was out. But
he also
you,
had Yusuf Nurkic to just help him make all the decisions.
but while Damian is gone, Scoot now assumes Damian's role when it comes to ball handling and when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to orchestrating an offense. So it's not just like he's going to put up the same numbers he did when Damian was out, because when Damian was out last year, it was what Josh Hart who refused to shoot the basketball,
Mm-hmm.
or even a Skylar Mays type of point guard that you brought in on a 10-day contract where you're getting all of the usage. No, you still have Shaden who's going to get shots, and then you still have now Brogdon's coming in. You've got Scoot,
Jeremy.
so he's not just going to get a chance like when we were tanking, where it's like, okay, Anthony, you're the only marketable player we have. Like just try and score 40 and keep it close. I think it's going to be more like, okay, how can we get you some Klay Thompson type of looks where you don't have to have the ball in your hands? How can we, he's like a lethal catch and shoot shooter. I'm sure he can handle the ball in the break, but I don't think they're going to really be running many sets for him if I'm being, or not sets for him initiating sets for others.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very good pull-up shooter as well, so you don't want to take that out of his role completely. But I just don't want him to. He needs to play like Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine doesn't think about passing the ball. He thinks about getting his. So if we can get Ant a lot of open shots because you're playing with Scoot Henderson and Malcolm Brogdon, and then when you have the ball, you're just thinking of himself, not even thinking about the pass because he's trying to get buckets. I think that would be the best role for him. I'm Tara and I had a podcast where we talked about if you can pass shoot or dribble pass shoot, the triple threat. I think Anthony Simons is Colin Sexton level bad at passing. So if you can take that decision point out of his off his hands in general, I think that's going to be good because I just don't think Anthony sees the peripherals passing lanes. I think if he saw it, he'd pass. I just don't think he sees it in general.
And
So anytime,
everything you're saying is why I think he needs to be the sixth man. I would not start him. The thing that worries me the most about this team, more than Chauncey Billups being the coach, is if you roll out a starting lineup of Henderson, Simons, Sharp, Grant, and Ayton, everyone wants the ball. Everyone wants to score.
everyone needs the ball.
That's what everyone's looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're going to get some defensive rebounding from Ayton. You're not going to get anything else from Jeremy. You're not going to get anything else from Anthony. Shaden's a good rebounder, so you got two rebounders in Scoot.
I think Scoot's a good rebounder.
Yeah, so Scoot's the only decision maker on that court.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need somebody who's just going to be willing to say, "Hey, I'll chill in the corner. I'll play defense." Like Matisse probably would be my starting three. Shaden would be my starting two. Like that to me is going to be Portland's, I think, Achilles heel next season. If they try to trot out that starting lineup, because you just don't have enough role players who don't need to score, or who don't want, like, who just can we just get like a Nick Batum? What's funny is Josh Hart would actually be his prototype would actually be kind of fun on this team. Like,
yeah,
shoot the ball. I'll play defense and I'll rebound.
Chris Murray. I mean, if Chris Murray was a third-year vet, I think he would be a pretty damn good small forward for this team. It's just I honestly think he plays like a third-year vet. You know,
Like
day one when he comes in.
We need a Jarris Walker type at the four.
Oh, don't you dare tease me with the Jarris Walker.
That's just what it's going to be. Like, and I think for this team to take the step, if you believe that Scoot, Shaden, and DA are your big three, what are the prototypical fours? You want Jarris Walker's the guy. Like, he's the guy that if I'm Joe Cronin, I've got my eyes on. You've got your assets,
as well.
You've got your assets piled up, and like, if I could take two players from last year's draft class, give me Asar Thompson and Jarris Walker, the 3 and the 4.
Oh god damn, that'd be crazy.
Defense,
I mean,
playmaking.
If we have Scoot, I think those two would be probably my guys as well. But like Jarris Walker mixed with DeAndre Ayton and Rob Williams as that would be pretty amazing. I really think that Chris Murray's gonna shine now. Like, I think he's gonna find a way to carve out 18 solid minutes and be a plus every time he's on the court.
You don't think? Do you think? So we've seen both in summer league. I think it's going to come down to Jabari Walker and Chris Murray for minutes. I don't think there's time for both,
especially with Robert
Williams.
Yeah, I love Jabari Walker. I think Chris Murray is more valuable with this current roster. Like, I think Chris Murray is would be my guy for that fourth big role. I think he's more versatile as well. You can't put Jabari with his hitch in his movement anywhere near the perimeter. I think Chris Murray, because he's just so fundamentally sound, like, you see his movement and his footwork, and you're like, oh, this was like, he is so fundamentally sound with all of the footwork. I think that along with his ability to just fling that thing from three and making it at a good clip, I think he would be starting over Jabari for me.
Yeah, I think that's the position battle that I'm going to be watching the most. With Nasir moved, there's really, I think you've got Matisse is really the only small forward that the team has. So it would be nice if they do move Brogdon, maybe at least get a stopgap at the 3 with a future pick. Anything else that you want to touch on? I'm kind of staying away from all of the Damian, Chris Haynes, Joe Cronin, which side you're on. I think
I've been driving for. I've been so busy with the fair and driving and all that stuff, so I have no idea any of that drama.
I'll just basically give like a 30-second overview. When the trade went down, everyone was happy. Portland got the assets they wanted. Joe Cronin sent him to the best possible destination that he could have in Milwaukee. Immediately after the trade was official, Dame wrote this beautiful farewell letter to the fans in the city of Portland. Then Chris Haynes literally within minutes drops this inside look at the nasty divorce between the Blazers and Damian Lillard. It just says like that Dame wanted to come back in his words, it made it seem like Dame wanted to come back to Portland if a trade with Miami didn't go through. However, if you looked at other reporting, I believe Shams Charania had it in The Athletic that said it wasn't that. It was Dame was willing to come into training camp and be a professional with the Blazers until a trade got worked out with the Miami Heat. So it wasn't just like Dame wanted to come back. And that Joe Cronin said, no, you already requested out. I'm going to find you a spot. And then there was reports that Dame was in the practice facility for 8 days and Joe Cronin didn't speak to him at all. And I'm just like,
this is some petty bullshit.
One, like if you're just so pissed off with Dame's agent and you're just like, maybe it was an emotional decision for Joe. And so if he could remove that emotion, like, I'm not going to get attached to you as much anymore, Dame. Like, I think both sides.
You can't let emotions be
I
part
think
of it when you're trying to make this tactical of a decision.
Here's the thing. When you have a franchise player who doesn't win a championship and moves on, it always ends up messy. That's just how it is. It just ends up messy when you don't have that championship to fall back on. And both sides played a role in that. I thought that I didn't read the entire article. I saw enough from all of the screenshots on Twitter where it was just like, it felt petty and juvenile. We know that Chris Haynes is Dame and his camp's mouthpiece. Like, everyone was happy. Like, Dame, you get the situation. Portland gets to start over. The farewell post should have been it, but it's just like, okay, we're gonna,
clicks though, bro.
Have this petty, we're gonna have these clicks on the way out. Like, it wasn't necessary. And then of course it divided the fan base again. And now it's like everyone's like, oh, we got a great trade for Jrue Holiday, and everyone's excited. It was just more like people are just too easily, like, I tweeted this. I was like, y'all are taking this bait hook, line, and sinker from this article.
Like, what that art? I mean, I didn't know it existed. So, but what that article was like down to do. You know what it was trying to do.
Yeah, and juvenile and unnecessary.
Well, what? Like, it's with journalism. Like, just look what ESPN did with firing all of these NFL and NBA guys to hire Pat McAfee. This is where journalism was going with, clickbait, and
Sharp
it's
too.
just an example of it. What's that?
They got Shannon Sharp too, so now he can yell at Stephen A on these. It's dumb and it's pointless. I will say I'm happy for Dame. I'm excited to see how he plays in Milwaukee. I'm even more excited how he plays in Milwaukee with Jrue Holiday on the Celtics. I think that could be an all-time classic Eastern Conference Finals.
That better go 7 rounds for the culture.
The two teams have already had memorable playoff finishes in recent history. You have Grant Williams hitting that millions of threes in that Game 7, that Celtics victory a couple years ago. I will say I'm glad the trade has been made. I'm glad I don't have to, log on and see what podcast interview Dame gave, what cryptic tweets, or, saying what players he wants to play with. And then, like, when your star player is in that media cycle, no matter how many keywords, no matter how many keywords that you mute or try and stay away from it, it's just like, I don't give a shit. I want to talk about basketball. Like, the draft was maybe, like, leading up to the draft was one of the most miserable times as a fan, because it was all like, I don't want to play with any more 19-year-olds. And what are the Blazers? Are they going to trade the pick for just a player that's not going to get them over the hump at all? Like, thankfully, Joe and Mike and the rest of the crew did the right thing, but it was miserable for me as someone who wanted to start over. I do thank Dame for everything he gave to the city, to the organization, from all accounts, from multiple people, one of the best, if not the best, to work with. Every request, he was there, complete professional, and I'm really happy for him. Like, even if he wanted to come back, I'm really glad that Joe said no. I think it's one of those where it's like, I'm doing this on your behalf. Like, you don't know any better, right, Dame? Like, I know it's almost like leaving for college. Like, you're just like, oh shit, I've been at home for these 18 years. I don't know what else is out there. And you just kind of like don't want it. You want to go back to your safe and secure house. But it was time for Dame to kind of get his LeBron Miami Heat on. Like, go have your 4 years in college, and if you want to come back, we'll welcome you back with open arms. Just like
we don't want the relationship with Dame to be contentious like it was with Kevin Garnett in Minnesota
or with Bill Walton. It took like 20 years for 20 plus years for Bill Walton to be cool with Portland. Like, it was some nasty shit with Bill. in Portland. Like, it doesn't need to be like that. Like, Dame was more than
He
a
built
statement.
roots in Portland. How many superstars build roots in a city? And we had two in CJ and Dame.
Yeah, CJ
So
still
I'm
got
glad
his
that we did right by
winery
them.
here. CJ still got his winery here. Like, it seems like Dame, a lot of his family's still going to stay in town. Like, he's got a mansion built in the
So he
world of.
has a brick and mortar business still, right? The car, the
Yeah, the Dame
dealership.
Lillard tour. Yep, yep, yeah. So like, I'm happy for Dame. Um, let's. I was honestly a little peeved at that article that Haynes put out, but like, time's passed a bit, and it's more just like, okay, you're gonna get your chance now. Like, it sucks it wasn't with Portland, but you're gonna get your chance. This is the best player you've ever played with, best team you've ever played. If you get reunited with Terry, which is awesome, I really like Terry, and I I hope he has success, and I hope he enjoys it, and I do hope that he comes back for a year in Portland, like, to
Mm.
wrap it up, because I think that would put a bow on everything, and it would be even better if we're competing and he can help us out in any way. But it just feels like a relief. Like, we're
Mm.
not talking about this. I felt like we've been ahead of the curve talking about this for 2 years, and a lot of things that we said, like, neither wants to be the bad guy, neither wants to kind of make the first move in this, kind of all came to fruition.
We
uh,
pulled the band-aid off, and it's time to,
it's
start
time to
anew.
be excited. Like, it's time to be excited about the new era. We're going to be a fun team. We have a great core. I think we have one of the best young cores. We've actually got a war chest of assets for the first
We're a
time.
league pass team now.
Yeah, for the first time ever, we have a war chest of assets. If a perfect small forward comes on the market, you can get him. If there's someone in the draft you like, you can move up 10 or 15 spots. Like, you now have the ability to be what the Thunder kept doing and doing
Mm.
and doing. Like, the Thunder were the blueprint. And um I'm so excited. Like, we're going to FanFest on Sunday.
Someday.
It's been years since I've been to a FanFest. um Media days tomorrow. We're recording Sunday night. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to watch all those interviews. Like, I'm excited. It's just like new life has been pumped into Grip City. Like, it was time. It's done. I'm ready to see how this young team progresses. I already told you, this gives me like Rise With Us vibes from the B. Roy Lamarcus Martell days, and it's a young group. And yeah, I'm really excited. So I think with that said, Sage, let our listeners know where they can find us, and let's send this one on home.
We're available on iTunes, Stitcher, Himalaya Podcast, everywhere where you get your podcast. We're there. We're available on IG and TikTok for the clips from this long form content. So thank you all for listening. I think this one is going to be a long one, but I think everything that needed to be said was said. So we'll be back pretty soon to talk about this season that's coming up pretty damn quick. So thank you all
Yeah,
for listening, and we're
stay
out.
tuned. Stay tuned. Our next episode will be it'll be a big one. Western Conference, Eastern Conference predictions. One of my favorite episodes to record. That's the next one. So stay tuned for that one.
All right. Peace out, everybody.